was on an assignment for the Army, making my way up from San Antonio, Texas to Tacoma, Washington. It was a long drive and they gave me 6 days to report to my new unit. But I did not mind. I love road trips. There is nothing like the freedom of exploring the world by yourself. The first day of my journey, I planned to get in as much driving as possible so I could spend a few days in Utah, a sort of mini vacation. This was January and the days were short, so maximizing the amount of daylight I had was crucial. I got up extra early that morning, carried the last of my bags out of my Corolla, signed out of my old unit, and hit the road at roughly 5 a.m. It was an amazing day. I saw the landscape transform around me as I headed further west than I had ever been in my life. From the San Antonio metropolitan area to the savannas of the Edwards Plateau, to the Pancake Flat farmland of the Great Plains region. Finally, the farms opened up into prairies and I saw the Welcome to New Mexico sign, the Land Enchantment sign. Now, I was really in the middle of nowhere. Continuing on US Route 380, I eventually found myself in Roswell. I could have gotten a few more hours of driving in and made it to Albuquerque, but I figured since I was in no rush, I might as well see what Roswell had to offer. Who knows, maybe I wouldn't get a chance to visit again. As a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious, I took a self-guided tour to the shops and the attractions. The next day, I continued to Albuquerque, then westward to Interstate 40. By the time I reached Gallup and started northbound on US Route 491, I still had 2 hours of driving left before crossing the border into Colorado, and another 45 minutes before I would get to Cortez. My plan stopped for the night. However, my daylight was already running out, as sunset was at about 6 p.m. I got a Starbucks and refreshed myself for the final stretch. It was supposed to be easy, just a straight shot. But looking back on it now, I realized that had I decided to stop in Albuquerque instead of Roswell the night before, I would have already been in Colorado by then, and possibly making my way to Utah. I would have saved myself from what was waiting for me on that desolate highway. Route 491 stretched far into the Navajo Nation. On either side of me were endless expanses of prairie bookended by dark indigo mountains on the horizon. To my left, the sky glowed a faint orange-purple, the light slowly dying down like smoldering embers in a fire, until finally plunging the land into darkness. Every now and then, I would see a forlorn headlight. Every now and then, I would see the forlorn headlights of another car passing by, which gave me a bit of relief that I was not alone. I also had my road trip playlist on to keep me company, and call it ironic, but Hotel California was playing. After passing the small, lonely town of Newcomb, the next piece of civilization would be Shiprock. However, between the two was a 36-mile stretch of absolute nothingness, an abyss I had to cross. I was not ready for what I was about to witness. After several miles, having not seen another car on the road, I saw something strange emerge from the horizon, barely lit by the moonlight. I thought it was a road sign at first, and then as I came closer, I realized it was a person, walking on the shoulder of the road heading in my direction. I squinted, trying my hardest to focus on the figure. In the darkness, I could tell they were wearing a poncho of some sort, with long black hair flowing down past their chest. Who could be walking out here, all alone, at night? Whoever it was, they had no lights, no reflectors, no strobes of any kind to signal to passing cars that they were there, and they walked on the pavement, dangerously close to oncoming traffic. I pulled to the left a bit, giving them a wide berth. Suddenly, my stereo cut out. As if I had turned it off, the screen went completely dark and my phone disconnected from Bluetooth. While this was unusual, it did happen from time to time, so I really thought nothing of it. As I approached, I saw the person raise their right arm as if to flag me down and hitch a ride. There was no way that was happening. As my headlights swept by, I realized it was a man dressed in a button-up shirt, a wool poncho, jeans, and cowboy boots. His large belt buckle glinted as the lights passed him, but in that split second, I realized with abject shock that not only were his eyes painfully wide open, but they seemed to be tracking me. Somehow, he was able to see me through the glare of my headlights and look me dead in the eyes, not breaking contact until I passed. I was shaken for a bit, but my nerves gradually subsided. My stereo abruptly turned back on and my music continued playing. I brushed everything off as simply my imagination, the darkness and the shadows playing tricks on my mind. Besides, the man was behind me. I figured he must have been drunk. Indian reservations sadly have high rates of alcoholism. I looked in my rearview mirror and he was gone. I could not see him. Maybe he was too far behind me now. Maybe it was just too dark. I drove on trying to figure out what had just happened, but at the same time forcing myself not to think about it. Just when I thought I had moved on, I saw another shape in the distance, getting closer. I realized it was another figure. Another person walking alone at night. There was no way. They walked along the shoulder of the road, swaying back and forth, slowly. I could make out that this person was also wearing a poncho. Then I saw what looked like long black hair reaching down past the chest. It was the man, the same one, but how? The man raised his arm again, trying to flag me down. I kept my pace with no intention of stopping. Just like last time, my stereo turned off again. Suddenly, the man leapt out into the road, arms waving frantically. I swerved into the left lane, narrowly avoiding him. In my headlights, I noticed he had the same wide-eyed look, his gaze locked onto mine. I also saw that his clothes did not look as they had the first time I saw him. Once they were clean, if not well worn, but now they were soiled and tattered, rags barely hanging onto his withered frame. His hair was wild and unkempt, with clods of dried dirt stuck in the locks. But his eyes remained the same. My heart nearly burst through my chest at the sudden shock. Hyperventilating, I slowed down and glanced into my rearview mirror to make sure he was all right. Nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to see. The man was running. He was sprinting towards me. I centered the wheel and accelerated, hoping to get as much distance from him as possible. But as I continued to speed up, so did he. Faster and faster I drove, but every time I looked in the mirror, I would see him right behind me, perfectly keeping pace, his body tinted red by my taillights. I could feel my temples throbbing and my hands getting slick with sweat on the steering wheel. I was sick to my stomach. There was no way. I looked forward, hoping to see a faint glimmer of light from the town ahead, but it was still too far away. I looked back at the rearview mirror. The man was gone. I should have been relieved, but I knew better. Where did he go? I looked around, hoping to regain a visual on him. I could not see anything. Taking a deep breath, I refocused on the road but kept my guard up. Just keep driving, I told myself. Only a few more miles to go. Out of the corner of my right eye, I saw something, another shape. It was not the man, at least I did not think so. I glanced over, bracing myself for whatever was going to meet my sight. It looked like an animal of some kind, though I could not make out exactly what it was. Under the moonlight, I could see it running alongside my car, its forelimbs reaching out in long strides, its back undulating like a dog. Closer and closer it came. The closer it was, the more of it I could see, little by little. Then I noticed its limbs were far too long for its body. Its body was too short. It had no tail. The head was oddly round, and from its back came a trail of long black hair. I slammed my foot on the gas, pushing my car's engine harder than I had ever pushed it before, but by now, I was clocking well over 110 miles per hour. But this creature kept up. It was not phased, it simply ran faster and faster to match my speed. Just what was this thing? How could anything run this fast? The entity seemed to have endless stamina. Just how long could this keep up? Just how much faster could it go? Soon, my car would hit its top speed. And then what? How long could it maintain that before breaking down? It would not be long before my engine overheated, and eventually, I would run out of gas. And when I did, what would happen if that thing caught me? At 120 miles per hour, my car had reached its limit. This was the fastest I could go. But the creature continued its pursuit. My temperature gauge was approaching the red, and so was my tachometer. I could not keep this up any longer. Suddenly, like the beacon of a lighthouse on a thunderous sea, first light of shiprock came into view. It was close, so close. If I could just hold on a little longer, I could make it into town, to safety. I pressed on. I fixed my eyes on the lights growing brighter on the horizon. They bloomed outwards, glimmering in the night air. Though it was a small town, it was a sight for sore eyes. Looking in my periphery, I saw the undulation of the creature's spine as it kept pace with my car. But now it was slipping away, steering further and further from the road. It suddenly hit me just how hard my heart was beating. Beads of sweat dripped down my face. I looked over. The creature was gone. But this time, the feeling of dread was also gone with it. My stereo once again turned back on, and my music resumed. I breathed a deep sigh of relief. I let off the accelerator. Whatever it was finally gone for good. Having white-knuckled the steering wheel the whole time without realizing it, my hands were extremely sore, but I was glad to have made it through. A week later, I told another soldier in my unit about what I had experienced. Being originally from Albuquerque, she was familiar with the Native American legends of the Southwest. The conversation steered towards a certain creature that she would not dare speak the name of. She also told me that the highway I took was well known for all sorts of paranormal phenomena. Look up what Route 491 used to be called, and everything will make sense. Be careful out there. This story is infamous in my family and one I grew up hearing and telling. Back in the 80s, my Aunt Kay was in her early 20s. This was before she married my uncle, and she would drive long distances back and forth between her parents and his to visit. It was a transitional period for them. He had just graduated and she had not moved out yet to be with him. It was a long drive across several states, through the desert, which took her hours. This desolate highway would have stretches of road that lasted hundreds of miles, where you quite often would not see another driver, let alone a gas station. So, Aunt Kay set out and began one of these journeys. A couple of hours into the drive, she noticed a dark vehicle slowly catching up to her. She barely noticed as she continued to sing along to Les Miserables until the vehicle got aggressively close. She turned off the music and looked into her rearview mirror, seeing the vehicle flash its brights and a hand pointing to her car and motioning to pull over. Alarmed, she quickly slowed and began to look for a good place to pull off the road to see what was wrong with her car. The second she began to pull off the road, she said she felt and heard as clear as day, "Don't pull over." Then again stronger, "Don't pull over." Call it God, intuition, or just a gut feeling, but a jolt of adrenaline and fear shot through Aunt Kay's body. As she hit the gas and peeled back onto the highway, heart pumping, she silently asked herself what the hell that was. As she saw the vehicle peel out behind her, and confusion set in. Why was the driver motioning for her to pull over? Was there something wrong with her car? And what the hell was that warning she had felt? It would have been a severe situation if her car broke down out there, especially before cell phones, but she pressed on anyways. Just as her resolve wavered and she started questioning whether she had truly felt what she felt, she started slowing back down while the dark vehicle picked up speed. It entered the oncoming traffic lane at the same level of her car. The driver smiled, pointed, motioned, and mouthed the words, "Pull over." She said the second she looked into his eyes, she felt pure evil. She felt a horribly sick feeling in the pit of her stomach and again heard the words in her head, "Don't pull over." She described him as looking scary and greasy and noticed he was missing a couple of teeth in the smile she would never forget. That sent chills through her. This quickly dispelled any thoughts she had of pulling over, and she put the pedal to the metal to try to lose him. He chased after her. She slowed down. He slowed down. She sped up. He sped up. It got to the point that he began trying to push her car off the road. Aunt Kay was in tears as this man continued to terrorize her alone, out in the middle of nowhere. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she saw a couple of semis in the distance. She felt that if only she could get close to those trucks, or even get in between them, she would be safe. So she took off. He continued to flash his lights, honk his horn, and try to hit her car until she got close enough to the trucks. As she got in between them, she saw the dark vehicle slow way down and eventually disappear from view. She stayed with the trucks for a couple of hours until she felt safe enough to pull over at a gas station and cry. Fast forward several years. Aunt Kay and my uncle are married, as a high-profile criminal prosecutor in Las Vegas. She is now a full-time mother of several young children. Since I have known my aunt, she has been obsessed with true crime, Dateline, 2020, and unsolved mysteries. They were always playing at her house. This day was no different. She was folding laundry in the kitchen while listening to the television in the other room. The interviewer was talking about a man being interviewed on death row. As she paired another match of socks, she heard the man describe one of his tactics for procuring victims. I would wait along the side of the highway. A car would go by with a family and I'd wait. Another car with a male driver would go by and I'd wait. But every so often, a car would go by with a pretty woman driving, so I'd pull out behind them and follow them. I'd flash my brights, honk, and motion for them to pull over. Aunt Kay, paralyzed, continued to listen. When they would eventually pull over, I'd tell them to pop the hood and I'd tell them what was wrong with their car. They would, and I'd yank a couple wires. When the car would not start, I'd tell them no problem. My buddy has a shop in the next town. I can give you a ride and he'll give you a fair deal. They'd get in, and I'd rape and kill them. Bury them anywhere in the desert. When asked how many times he had done this, he responded, "They'll never find all the bodies, because I can't even count." And how many got away? 2 or 3. My aunt slowly moved to the living room. She stood alone, staring into the same toothless grin she had seen on that highway so many years before. It was Henry Lee Lucas. "My name is Christopher. I am an 18-year-old guy living in Gatineau, Canada. For those who do not know the area, Gatineau is a pretty calm city right next to Ottawa. About 15 minutes from downtown Ottawa, but on the Quebec side, I grew up speaking French, so apologies if my English is not perfect. This happened about 2 months ago, and I still think about it every night. I had spent the evening at my girlfriend's place. She lives about 25 minutes away from me by car. I left around 1:30 a.m. on the weekday, so the roads were completely empty. No traffic, no people, just silence. I was about 10 minutes from home, driving down Rue St. Lucas, a wide road with 2 lanes on each side, running along a river. It is poorly lit. At night, your headlights are basically the only thing letting you see what is ahead. I turned at an intersection where there is a convenience store and a McDonald's, then drove another 100 meters. That is when I saw something on the road. At first, it was just a shape, a silhouette moving erratically in my headlights. Then I realized it was running, zigzagging right in the middle of the street. My first thought was that it was someone drunk or high. No sane person runs like that at night, especially not on an empty road. But as I got closer, the silhouette sharpened into a young woman, early to mid-20s, maybe. She was waving her arms wildly like she was trying to flag someone down, like she was begging for help, and instantly my brain went somewhere dark. I thought about all those horror stories, the ones where someone pretends to need help, where stopping your car is a mistake you never come back from. So I decided not to stop. As I passed her, in only a fraction of a second, I saw her face. She was not drunk, she was not acting, she looked terrified. I drove another second, maybe 2. Then I did something that still makes my stomach twist. I slammed the brakes, made a U-turn and went back. I stopped about 7 meters away and slowly cracked my window open. I did not even get the chance to speak. She turned around and ran straight at my car. I panicked and rolled the window back up instantly. She grabbed the rear passenger door handle behind me and tried to open it. Again and again and again, the doors were locked. Through the glass, I could hear her screaming, "Call the police! Call the police!" My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. While it was ringing, I lowered my window just a few centimeters and said, Okay, calm down. I am calling the police. You are safe." Something about that made her stop. She was not aggressive anymore. She was not erratic, just completely broken. She did not look intoxicated at all, just pure panic. She told me she was going to walk back towards the convenience store and McDonald's, the one I had just passed, about 100 meters away. She started walking. I followed her in my car, barely moving, maybe 2 kilometers per hour. Still on the phone with the dispatcher, I explained everything. A young woman running in the middle of the road, screaming for someone to call the police, clearly distressed, but not drunk or high. By the time I finished giving our location, we reached the convenience store. Both the store and the McDonald's were closed. There was no one else around, just her and me under the harsh gas station lights. She leaned against the wall, crying, and for the first time I could really see her. That is when I noticed her hands. They were completely covered in blood, not smeared, not splattered, soaked. I had never seen that much blood in my life. Her clothes were stained too. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it. I asked her quietly, "Ma'am, are you injured?" She shook her head no. I swallowed and asked her, "Is that your blood?" She looked at her hands, then she said, "No." My mind went blank. If it was not her blood, then whose was it? Before I could ask anything else, there was a long silence, maybe 10 seconds. Then she broke. She started crying harder than before and said in a voice I will never forget, "I'm so ashamed of what I did. They will never forgive me." Before I could even process what that meant, a police car pulled up fast. 2 officers got out. One of them took my name and phone number and told me I could leave immediately. The other went straight to the woman. I did not argue, I drove away. And that was the last time I saw her. It has been 2 months. No call from the police, no follow-up, no news article, no missing persons, no crime reported anywhere. Nothing. My friends and I have tried to make sense of it. We have come up with our theories, some of them very dark, but every explanation falls apart somewhere. If the blood was not hers, that explains part of it. Her words explain another part. But why was she running in the road? Why did she not call the police herself? Why was she alone? Why has there been zero trace of whatever happened? Sometimes I wonder if I helped a victim. Other times I wonder if I unknowingly stopped by someone who had just done something unforgivable. And sometimes I wonder if the scariest part is that I will never know which one it was. Thank you guys so much for being here. I don't know much about that last one. I can't find anything on it either, but it seems to be a case of someone having done something to somebody. Let me know what your thoughts are. And of course, like always, if you have any stories that you want me to tell, I have a link in my bio that goes to my email where you can send them. And if you feel it in your heart or support me, just hit that follow button. It means the world. See you in the next one. Peace.